Yeah, so I don't know about you, and I wish it wasn't this way to a certain degree. Well, to a huge degree, I wish it wasn't this way. But I'm still pretty obsessed over what happened several days ago with Charlie Kirk. And, I've heard so many different weird thoughts that I've even allowed sometimes to affect me. Like, well, what about the death of like these two Democrat politicians like a couple weeks ago? Like, that's not going to affect you. Like, and what about all these other people who've died, all these kids and who've died? And it's like, and I've allowed myself to even feel guilty a little bit because like Charlie Kirk's death in particular really shook me to the core. Like, I literally wept so hard for him. And like I was horribly, like, I feel like what happened to the Ukrainian woman, I believe her name is pronounced Irina Zarutska. Um, that was horrible, and I mean, Charlie Kirk was super passionate about that before he passed. Um, and the Democrat politicians from I think it was Minnesota who passed away. They were state lawmakers, and that was terrible. I mean, of course that's terrible. They were killed. They were assassinated too. I mean, it's all terrible. But like, why do we have to guilt trip people into thinking one thing was more terrible than another, or guilt trip people who are really affected by one death and say, well, why aren't you affected by this death? And why do we have to just try to be the one who's always right, and then get mad when we're not, or when get mad when other people disagree with us? I just don't understand that. Like, I don't know why it's wrong to mourn the death of a 31-year-old father and husband. And honestly, I've been tempted just to be so obsessed with it. And I keep getting on my phone, and I keep going to comment sections comment sections are like the worst thing ever, pretty much. Because, you can just hide behind whatever platform and just put it whatever you want there. And it's like, and it's just so tempting to engage in that because there's just so much genuine, vile, evil, and hatred. And so I just am like thinking to myself, how do I respond to this? And it's like, I want to move on from this. I don't want to be so burdened by how disgusting and evil people's responses are. I don't want to be burdened by the assassination itself. I don't want to be burdened by people pressuring other people to not be so burdened, or any of these things. How do we respond to this? And it's just like, I really do think something that's gonna have to happen is we're going to see lots more voices courageously willing to just kind of start speaking about really controversial things, because that's what happens when you kill somebody who had some important things to say. Especially since a lot of the hatred comes from a place of people not even knowing the guy, having no personal knowledge of him, no personal relationship with him. And I'm just going to tell you, and this is something he said, what needs to happen and what is going to happen now is that the gospel is going to be preached. Disciples are going to be made. And people are going to rise up in every corner of the internet and in every corner of public society and in every institution and all over, wherever there's human affairs now taking place globally, because of this and because of more things that are going to come. God help us what happens next. People are going to start preaching the same things that Charlie Kirk believed. And the most important thing that Charlie Kirk believed is that Jesus rose from the dead. Jesus died. Jesus made it available for you to live under the influence of God. And the reason why all these people feel so strongly and so badly about Charlie Kirk and want to say so much evil is because they're victims of the influence of a different kingdom that is also here among us. It's the kingdom of darkness and evil. It's the kingdom of the demons. Okay, that sounds so hokey pokey, maybe, for some of you guys. But that's what it is. People who are okay with the death of other people who just are only guilty of just speaking their opinions, they are missing out on a kingdom in which you can live, and by living there and learning from the king of that kingdom, Jesus of Nazareth, you can become the kind of person who on the inside is just moved by any death or any violence, and even moved sympathetically toward those who commit acts of violence. Like the poor guy who killed Charlie Kirk. He's living in a delusion. He's living in a world where everything is so dangerous. Everything is so dangerous, and he feels so threatened, and he feels like such a victim. And so he felt like he had to go out and kill in order to protect himself from all these fake enemies that are surrounding him, because he was under the influence of the demons, of the principalities of darkness, of the influence of hell in the world. It's plain and simple, just the influence of hell in the world. That's exactly what it's about. The influence of hell in the world. And let me tell you though, there's another kingdom. It's the kingdom of God, and it's at hand. The influence of God is at hand. God is doing stuff right now. He's acting in the world, and Jesus came 2 millennia ago to invite people to participate in it and join him and learn from him how to live in God's kingdom and how to become like him, how to become like Jesus himself, and learn from him how to live our lives under the influence of God, and make us into the kinds of people who are full of love and full of kindness, and who are full of blessing, and who love our enemies, bless those who curse us, do good to those that hate us, and pray for those who persecute us and despitefully use us. Okay, and it's more of this is going to start happening. More people who actually do what Jesus said are going to start rising up and really doing what Jesus said. And we need to start proclaiming Jesus' good news and start doing it louder. Okay, because it is possible for even people who are so full of hatred that they are glad that Charlie Kirk died to become so full of compassion that they would even be sad if somebody actually genuinely as bad as Hitler died. And they would be so full of sympathy for that person that they would look and think, it's the poor guy was something happened in his childhood that made him so deformed and so screwed up that he thought it was okay to do the horrible things that he did. Now, the thing about Charlie Kirk is, I really encourage people to go and actually look at everything he said. Watch some full interviews of his that he did with people. Listen to some full podcast episodes. Read some of his books. Read some of the things he wrote. Maybe even get to know people who actually knew him. You know, the thing about it is you're not going to be interested in doing that unless you have the kingdom of God. Let me tell you, it's so much better to live in the kingdom of God, to live with Jesus, learning from him how to live your life in God's kingdom. It's so much better than to live for yourself, to live a life that isn't sustainable, that's full of hatred, that is full of justification of evil, all that stuff. That's just not a good life. It's so much better to be the kind of person who bitterly weeps because you can't help it when somebody who you know was a young father and husband dies. It's a better quality of life. And Jesus is inviting people into that quality of life. And let me tell you something. For those who hate Charlie Kirk and who are glad he's dead, well, unfortunately, I have some bad news for you. Charlie Kirk isn't dead. He's not. Charlie Kirk is alive. And this is where the mockers laugh and scoff. No, he's not dead. And that's because Jesus said, whoever believes in him Even though they die, yet they shall live. And he also said, whoever believes in him will never die. They'll never really die. And the proof of that is that everything Charlie Kirk talked about is now going to be so much bigger than it ever was before. Another proof of that is the fact that Jesus proved that everyone who believes in him will never die. Because he was a poor rabbi. He wasn't even a professional rabbi. He lived in a town that was so small, people didn't even believe it existed until we discovered it. I think less than 100 years ago, we discovered Nazareth. And yet he's the most influential person who ever walked the face of the earth, and his movement is bigger than any other movement that ever happened in all of human history. And the reason is because he genuinely rose from the dead. And he rose from the dead to prove that anybody who actually puts their trust in him will never die. And a life lived with Jesus, the one who rose, is an invincible life. From our perspective, death is the end. Death shuts people's mouths. Death shuts the opinions that we don't like down. But that's not how it works. Not in the kingdom of God. There's an invisible reality that surrounds every single one of us, and it's God's kingdom. And that is real reality. And Charlie Kirk is very much alive, and even more alive in the invisible reality around us called God's kingdom, wrapped up in the arms of the creator of the universe than he ever was before. And that is the destiny of every person who places their confidence in Jesus. And that's just a fact. So I just invite you guys to not let people's evil bother you. Don't do what I've done and keep getting on social media. Just focus on Jesus. Focus on his goodness. Rest in his goodness. And know how well off you are and how safe and secure you are because you live in God's kingdom. And preach the good news of the availability of God's kingdom to every person who is pitiable because they're missing out on it. God bless.